Reminder, right after the show tomorrow, don't forget we're headed to Vietnam. We're going to be interviewing the president exclusively, the big summit with Kim Jong-un. To the Mail, Dennis writes about the Smollett case. I hope you give praise for all the good work that the Chicago Police Department did on this case, for all the negativity the city receives, most of it. It is just, they followed the evidence, didn't listen to the mainstream media. Great job, CPD. And I agree. And their superintendent's amazing. Let Not Your Heart Be Troubled. Laura's next.
Hannity, thanks so much. Good salute to the police and the Border Patrol. Thank you so much. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Another jam-packed news. Day and night for us will be on every angle. We have every element of this Jussie Smollett saga covered for you. Chicago PD lighting into him earlier this morning. Former police superintendent Gary McCarthy and current president of the Chicago Police Union, Kevin Ingraham, are both here to react. You don't want to miss that. Plus, could any lawyer on earth develop a successful defense for Smollett? Alan Dershowitz is here with his thoughts on that. Plus, who are the media and the political arsonists who fan the Smollett flames? We're going to name names. Oh yes, later in the show. But first, the false allure of victimology. That's the focus of tonight's angle. After seeing your really strong reactions to last night's show about how universities are breeding grounds for victimhood and manufactured anger, we thought it was important to expand on this theme tonight. And given today's developments on a number of stories, this conversation we're going to have on the Ingraham Angle tonight is more important than ever. The superintendent of the Chicago Police was visibly, understandably outraged by what his department and the community has endured because of Jussie Smollett's fabricated hate crime.
When we discovered the actual motive, quite frankly, it pissed everybody off, because we have to invest valuable resources. A lot of what I want you all to really understand is when you all put things out there, into the universe that's not actual facts, then it causes us to have to chase all that stuff down. Those are resources and time spent that we'll never get back.
Oh, well, that's all well and good, I guess, but poor Jussie. Making a boatload of money per year, it looks like he was driven to this by his warped view of celebrity income inequality.
This announcement today recognizes that Empire actor Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career. And why? This stunt was orchestrated by Smollett because he was dissatisfied with his salary.
Now, what drove Smollett, a supporting actor on the Fox show Empire, to think that this stunt, this victim narrative that he'd been assaulted by MAGA hat-wearing thugs, would get him a pay raise? Well, probably because he had seen others profit from the same routine and never get penalized. There has been a long line of celebrity victims in recent years. People known only for their self-proclaimed victimhood. There was Colin Kaepernick, who after staging his kneeling protests and disrupting the entire sport of football, claimed he was being victimized by NFL owners who were keeping him from playing just because of his activism.
Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. So don't ask if your dreams are crazy.
Well, of course, he got a multi-million-dollar Nike contract and a hefty NFL settlement out of the whole deal. So you see, victimhood pays. And then, of course, there was Christine Blasey Ford. Like Smollett, Ford turned on the drama for the cameras. And even when her charges didn't hold water, no substantiation, she was still invited by Sports Illustrated to be an awards presenter before the glitterati.
I am honored to speak with you from afar about a woman I admire so much, Rachel Denhollander. I am in awe of you, and I will always be inspired by you.
Now, it's obvious for anyone capable of objective thought, if you're a liberal, and you have an outrageous claim that implicates conservatives or President Trump, what do they all stand for? Well, you'll probably get national attention. You'll get high-profile interviews. You'll be on magazine covers. And of course, you get a lot of money. Blasey Ford made out like Batman, raking in over $800,000 via a GoFundMe account. It was all for her security. And for a politically active, Trump-hating minor celebrity like Jussie Smollett, the lesson was learned. Victimhood pays, and often handsomely. Crying racism would be his ticket to fame and fortune. Heck, it beats playing second fiddle to Taraji Henson on a show whose ratings were already on the downslope.
Who you think you're talking to?
So he decided to write his own new role, where the character would be someone important, a moral crusader on a mission to warn the whole country about the dangers of Trump. Now, the absurd details of this phony attack confirmed all of the worst, most toxic of left-wing caricatures of Trump followers. That they're this new breed of Klansmen waiting around the corner of every major city to assault and lynch black and gay liberals. So suddenly it was like 1955 in Birmingham all over again. Kind of like a really bad Spike Lee film or something. And then when the fantasy came crashing down and police began to discover the lies, the real truth, well, the pair of brothers buying supplies, those Nigerian brothers on the coordinated phone calls, the evidence was overwhelming that Smollett had committed a poisonous fraud on America. So naturally, Smollett's media cooperators blamed conservatives.
We're going to see conservative media probably play this up a bit.
Sean Hannity's going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second. Tucker Carlson is going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second.
President of the
President of the United States is going to eat his lunch.
Unreal. So it's like heads they win, tails we lose. Trump supporters are guilty no matter what. No matter how egregious the underlying fraud. Doesn't matter. And it should not surprise any of us that today's Democrats cling to this victimhood narrative with a political death grip. After all, what do they have to do without it? You know, with their lame track record, how can they possibly convince African Americans that they're going to do better, be better off, and they're going to have their wages lifted up better, or they're going to have their neighborhoods safer, cartels are going to be kept out of their neighborhoods, gang members, MS-13 are going to be out of their communities. The Democrats are going to somehow be better at Trump at creating jobs? The answer is they can't argue any of that because they have no substantive arguments. But they can, and they do, sell victimhood. And for that, they have a lot of buyers. This is how Kanye West put it about a year ago in a pair of tweets. He said there was a time when slavery was the trend, and apparently that time is still upon us. But now, it's a mentality. Then he wrote, self-victimization is a disease. Well, you bet it is. Because when any of us cling to victimhood, we give away our power. Our power to solve problems and to better ourselves, the old-fashioned way. It's through something called hard work. And it's important to understand the left's strategy here. They'll use fabricated tales of victimization to divert attention from other inconvenient truths. Now, remember, it was Smollett who crashed in and took the focus off of Virginia Governor Ralph Blackface Northam. Of course, Andy's Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax, who was accused by at least 2 women of sexual abuse. Boy, that Virginia story faded fast, didn't it? And now that Smollett's anti-Trump drama has blown up, the media has jumped on the story of that whack job Coast Guard lieutenant who wanted to murder Democrat politicians.
This is now the second time that we know about, from the pipe bombs to yesterday. It's exactly what Donald Trump is encouraging.
Words are cheap to him, but they have cost elsewhere. You look at this man, and he's hearing that the media is the enemy of the people.
And we all know the recent history of violence propelled in some part by the president's rhetoric.
Again, this is so predictable, it's almost boring. But notice that when conservatives are truly victimized, physically attacked, when conservatives are actually targeted and shot for their political beliefs, like Congressman Steve Scalise, the media, they have no time for that. It's as if it never happened. In fact, Nancy Pelosi admonished Republicans against laying blame on Democrats for that attack.
I don't even want to go into the President of the United States, but in terms of some of the language that he has used, when you have all the assaults that are made on Hillary Clinton, for them to be so sanctimonious is something that it didn't used to be this way. Somewhere in the 90s, Republicans decided on a politics of personal destruction as they went after the Clintons, and that is the provenance of it, and that's what has continued.
Well, and despite the shooter's devotion for Bernie Sanders, conservatives didn't rush in to connect the Vermont senator to the shooting, nor did they try to link Smollett's criminal actions to his political heroes, Barack Obama and Maxine Waters, because to link them would be unfair, and it would be just plain stupid. But many anti-Trump partisans in the media felt obligated to connect Donald Trump and his supporters to a story that was ludicrous from the get-go.
What he said happened to him sort of fit in with not a narrative, but a reality for a lot of people in this country since President Trump was inaugurated.
When you think about what just happened to Jussie Smollett in Chicago, unfortunately we have racism germinating from the White House.
If you are in a position of power and you hate people and you want to cause suffering to them, what do you think is going to happen? And people are going to be beaten on the street.
Well, the modern Democratic movement has abandoned the optimism and the idealism of John F. Kennedy, people like Patrick J. Moynihan. And now its activist core peddles nonstop anger and resentment. So in a decade, just a short decade, they've gone from hope and change to hate and rage. And when 2020 comes around, I somehow doubt the message of "you're a victim" will beat "let's be victorious." And that's the angle. Joining me now with reaction is Gary McCarthy, former Chicago police superintendent and current candidate for Chicago mayor. And also with me, Kevin Ingraham, Chicago Fraternal Order of Police president. Kevin, watching all of this play out over the last few days, I've been dying to talk to you. I know my viewers are dying to hear your perspective. How does it all make you feel?
You know, it's unfortunate that we expended a large amount of resources in the Chicago Police Department to try and uncover a hoax that was played on both the people of the city of Chicago and on the police department for Mr. Smollett's personal gain. That's certainly unfortunate, and what it says is that in this society, we can go out and make outrageous claims and have everybody sort of swoon over this. And, he owes the city of Chicago an apology, he owes the police department an apology, and he's going to face his day in court, and it's not going to be well for him.
Gary, this is what the current Chicago PD superintendent said about the victims of actual crime. Let's watch.
I just wish that the families of gun violence in this city got this much attention, because that's who really deserves the amount of attention that we're giving to this particular incident.
Gary had a 1-year-old child shot just the day before yesterday, still an unacceptably high unsolved murder rate, attrition in the police force. Your thoughts on what the superintendent just said there?
Well, first of all, I think that we really need to put this issue in perspective. This was a reckless act that thankfully nobody got hurt from. You have to understand the history of Chicago and the redlining and the disinvestment in African-American neighborhoods that's gone on here for decades, and the anger that exists here and the polarization, the racial polarization that we have here. You put that together with the Laquan McDonald incident coming out of it, the Jason Van Dyke conviction. We have serious racial problems here, and this is akin to pouring gasoline on some burnt coals and hoping that they don't go on fire. This incident could have turned into something really terrible for this city. It's an assault on the city. He needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The city should be filing a lawsuit to recoup the money that we lost with the expenditures that the CPD put into it. And by the way, those same detectives who were always getting their butts kicked in the press for low clearance rates, did an exceptional job here, and they need to be complimented for it.
Absolutely.
And lastly, I think that we have to do a better job of holding Kim Foxx accountable for not being on the ground here right now. She's the state's attorney. She recused herself from this issue because she wanted to go to the Oscars. I mean, this is unacceptable behavior.
Wait a second.
And it's got to be recognized.
Wait, Gary. Did I just hear what you said? That the state's attorney, because I thought it was the state's attorney had some personal connection to people surrounding this case or familiarity, which I thought was odd because she had been on the case for a couple of weeks and suddenly she was recused. So how do you know that? How do you know about the Oscars? How is this established?
There's pictures all over the place of her at parties at the Oscars, even as we speak. So the bottom line is, she had an obligation to be here. She was elected to do her job. And when she comes up with the biggest political football that she's going to have as an African-American prosecutor, she fumbles it and she runs away.
So you're saying there's no reason. So wait a second. You're saying there was no reason for her recusal. That was all just a ruse to go to the Oscars?
I believe it's a ruse. It's absolutely a ruse.
Okay, well, I can't establish that.
She made a reference.
Okay, well, she made a reference. I can't establish that tonight. I don't want to jump. I don't want to do what people did in the early part of this case, but that's certainly an interesting assumption. But we'll see whether that's true. All right, gentlemen, what would justice actually require in this case? Chicago PD Superintendent Eddie Johnson had this suggestion today.
Absolute justice would be an apology to this city that he smeared, admitting what he did, and then be man enough to offer what he should offer up in terms of all the resources that were put into this.
Well, Kevin, Smollett's legal team is not doing this. Tonight they're doubling down, saying, today we witnessed an organized law enforcement spectacle that has no place in the American legal system. The presumption of innocence, a bedrock in the search for justice, was trampled upon at the expense of Mr. Smollett, and notably on the eve of a mayoral election. Smollett feels betrayed by a system that apparently wants to skip due process and proceed directly to sentencing. Ain't no apology there, Kevin. Did the cops skip due process?
Nope. No, and we've witnessed that they've gone after the police on many occasions when it's unjust, but here there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that he did exactly what he said he did. He has gone out and said, I was jumped, and quite frankly, the evidence doesn't pan out that way. He needs to fess up to what he did. He also needs to pay back the city, and he needs to apologize because the detectives in this city worked extremely hard to try and find us.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. He's not doing any of that. He's doubling down. It's the police that is at fault here. It's outrageous. By the way, there were a lot of bad actors during the whole Smollett affair, and some still. Now, let's start with some of the politicians. We're going to name names here. There were the ugly attempts at pure political politics, racial politics, from 2020 contenders. Kirsten Gillibrand, in a still-standing tweet from 3 weeks back, said, horribly, it's the latest of too many hate crimes against LGBTQ people and people of color. Kamala Harris said this was an attempted modern-day lynching. Cory Booker used identical language. The vicious attack was an attempted modern-day lynching. When the facts started unraveling, though, Booker and Harris demanded that we wait for the facts.
The information's still coming out. I'm going to withhold until all the information actually comes out.
Okay, so I will say this about that case. I think that the facts are still unfolding.
Wow, that's not something they didn't practice in this case, though. And certainly not with Brett Kavanaugh. Then there are those who deleted their tweets, their initial tweets, knowing that they won't be pressed by a compliant, cooperating media. Like House Intel Chair Adam Schiff. He said, we pray for your speedy recovery, Jesse, and reject this act of hatred and bigotry. He lives in CNN and MSNBC green rooms, so he shouldn't be too hard to get a clarification from, right? Well, no luck so far from the media firefighters. Well, the most powerful politician in the Democratic Party, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she wrote in a since-deleted tweet, the racist, homophobic attack on Smollett is an affront to our humanity. Well, the only affront to our humanity is the media apparatus that will circle the wagons to protect you from ever having to explain this away, Nancy. And speaking of the media, having reveled in this entire story, and then they're revealed to having just chased another hoax, they still reach the wrong conclusions. Here's Don Lemon.
In the court of public opinion, Jussie has lost. He's lost the fight in the court of public opinion.
I don't even know what that means. That's wrong. The sterling work of the Chicago PD is why he lost. Because there was hard evidence, and there was legwork done. If it's not bad enough, they're actually defending their rush to judgment. Yes, they are. This from Van Jones and Keith Boykin.
A lot of people say, well, how could you have believed this story from the beginning?
Because it happened.
Exactly.
This is a Jackie Robinson against homophobia in the black community. An icon, a beloved icon.
Jackie Robinson? What? Well, there are many other bad actors in this case, far too numerous to name in a broadcast relegated to just 1 hour. The more alarming takeaway is this. The Smollett case happened just 1 week after the Covington Catholic smear fell apart. And if these same politicians, celebrities, and media figures couldn't learn their lesson in that moment, well, what chance do you think they have for the next inevitable hoax? Coming up, the prosecutor charging Smollett laid out a pretty damning case against him earlier today, so how can he possibly build a defense? Alan Dershowitz with the answer to that next.
So-called journalist. He's not. I met him in person. He's actually a nice guy. Was nice to me last night. Back in January, in the immediate aftermath of Smollett's hate crime allegations, Lemon rushed to support the Empire actor. Despite obvious red flags, Lemon publicly doled out sympathy to Smollett. In fact, the CNN host told Entertainment Tonight that he texted Smollett every day following the incident. Now that the actual facts are coming in, Don's trying to spin the story and even blame me, like I'm responsible. I'm apparently running the world and everything else. Take a look.
This is playing out every single moment in cable news. Sean Hannity's going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second. Tucker Carlson is going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second.
President of the
President of the United States is going to eat his lunch. And who does the President of the United States watch every night? Cable news. Well, cable news.
You know, the interesting part is I purposely stayed away from the story to wait for more facts to come in. My sources in Chicago almost instantly were warning me, be careful on this story. Now, Don, everyone knows you hate Trump. You're part of the hate Trump media. You pretend to be objective. You're not. So why don't you just admit you are a talk show host like me? Be honest with your viewers. Joining us now is America First Action Senior Advisor Sean Spicer, media reporter for the Hill, Joe Concha. Good to see you both. You know, Joe, something fascinating you discovered and wrote about. Wow, everybody over at Conspiracy TV, NBC over there, they were all over this story in the beginning. How much coverage was in primetime last night?
In primetime MSNBC, if you're talking about, now remember, the Chicago police announced at 7:53 p.m. that Smollett would be charged. That means the 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and 11 p.m. shows.
That's called primetime. Yeah.
Primetime, right. Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, Brian Williams, who used to be the NBC news anchor. They covered it.
The same Brian Williams that saw dead bodies floating where there was no water?
Maybe why he's now at MSNBC at 11 o'clock instead of NBC at 6:30 at night. But they covered it for 0 minutes. And look, opinion shows I give a lot of leeway to because it's the editorial page. The problem here, the issue for MSNBC here, Sean, is the fact that they covered this story heavily when the narrative fit what they thought their audience wanted to hear. This was custom made for an MSNBC audience as it was presented in the beginning. 2 white males attack a gay black actor with bleach and a noose.
And a MAGA hat.
And a MAGA hat yelling, "This is MAGA country." And despite the fact there were many questionable parts about the story from the very beginning, and I withheld judgment as well, as in, what are 2 men walking around Chicago in a polar vortex in 30 below degree weather, waiting for a gay actor they probably have never seen on TV before, prepared for that very moment. And then once Smollett wasn't handing over phone records or they're heavily redacted, that's when you knew there was a problem. But MSNBC and NBC and a lot of other news outlets, not Chicago media, they did a great job here. They went ahead and presented it as an attack, as if it were fact, instead of using that key word, alleged, and now it's coming back to bite everybody.
You know, Sean, let me put it in context. Besides missing the biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in history and the hate, Trump mob mentality media, going with every story that's anti-Trump, proven wrong, they just move on to the next story, act like it never happened. Look at how often they have been wrong. I had Richard Jewell's attorney on, Lynn Wood, who I've known since 1996. We went back that far, but then it's UVA, then it's Duke Lacrosse, then it's Cambridge Police, then it's Zimmerman Trayvon, then it's Ferguson, then it is Baltimore. It's not vetting Obama. It's not after 8 years telling the real statistics of failure of Obama. It is destroy Trump. It's fascinating how wrong they are, how often they are so wrong.
Well, if you look at the last two cases in particular, both the Covington case and now this one in Chicago, both of them, it was a rush to judgment because the narrative fit. This idea that anything that's anti-Trump has got to be something that we jump on and go with. If you look at what Don Lemon said, he attacked you last night. But look at what he said, that Jussie Smollett has lost in the court of public opinion, and it's, quote, it's not his fault. He went on to say, when something happens and it's controversial, everyone is coming for you. And so I knew everyone would be picking apart his story. It's not for me. That's not my concern. That wasn't his concern. This gentleman stoked racial hatred. He spoke homophobic hatred, and he used the resources of the police. I'm all for forgiveness, Sean, but this individual hasn't even admitted his problem. He hasn't admitted the crime. And Don Lemon's rushing and saying that I'm more concerned about him than the thousands of people who didn't have police resources. Well,
look at we have 24 detectives.
And further, hold on. Yeah. But, right, so there's 24 detectives assigned that weren't doing other things for the people of Chicago. But furthermore, this concern that everybody has about fake news and further divide, this is exactly what it was happening. But it was inspired by the left, and now they want to ignore it. That's a problem.
By the way, are you really working for Extra Extra? Congratulations.
I am.
That's actually awesome. Great. Good for you. Joe, we'll give you a quick 20 seconds. Go ahead. Wrap it up.
I think in the end, Sean, MSNBC didn't cover this last night because they were afraid their audiences would be offended in their safe spaces. As if we don't give them comfort food and tell them what they want to hear, then they're going to go somewhere else. People need to be told what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear. And we're seeing that across a lot of news organizations at this point. Just report the news and don't worry about the feelings of your audiences in these cases.
Larry Logan, who was on with us last night, 90% of the media is left. And they're wrong. To the point where...
And now they're calling her, by the way, now they're calling her a conservative. The second that she didn't go along with their neighbors, they dismissed her.
I have no idea what her politics are. But when you get to the point you're willing to destroy a 16-year-old kid and not even make a phone call to find out if the 10 seconds you're looking at is true, that's why these companies are going to pay. I know Lynn Wood. He is unrelenting. We'll see. All right, thank you both. I wait till you hear how much of a hypocrite, you're going to love this, socialist Bernie Sanders is when it comes to his wealth. Also, a shocking video appears to show a conservative punch in the face at the University of California, Berkeley. The alleged victim here will tell his story along with our own Lawrence Jones. Straight ahead. All right, Hannity Watch on the Democrats' 2020 primary ramping up, and it's become very clear that it's going to be a contest to see who can push the most extreme radical socialist agenda. Just this week, Bernie Sanders announced he's running again, and the Vermont senator actually believes that his far-left 2016 platform is now in the, quote, political mainstream for 2020. I actually agree with that. Take a look.
What I am very proud of, and in a sense, this campaign, John, is a continuation of what we did in 2016. All of those ideas, people say, oh, Bernie, they're so radical, they are extreme. The American people just won't accept those ideas. Well, you know what's happened in over 3 years? All of those ideas and many more are now part of the political mainstream.
Is that your argument then against your competitors, which is, I was Medicare for all before Medicare for all was cool?
I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Problem for Bernie, he may not be socialist enough. Here's where Bernie's confused. While his extreme agenda, higher taxes, way higher, open borders, government-mandated climate shaming, may appeal to the radical base of the extreme Socialist Democratic Party, it couldn't be more disconnected from everyday Americans. And get this, we're now learning a lot more about Sanders' champagne socialist lifestyle, caviar dreams. He owns multiple homes, has reportedly earned over $1 million annually in recent years. It's not like the senator's lifestyle doesn't exactly match the rhetoric. Democrats, remember, they're only super generous with your money. Bernie's free to redistribute his money to the poor. He can open up his expensive homes to the homeless and provide health care with that money. Don't hold your breath. But of course, Bernie's far-left turn is being embraced by other Democratic candidates like California Senator Kamala Harris, who today was in New York City having lunch with the Reverend Al, just like Bernie did back in 2016. Now somehow the Reverend Al Sharpton is still a Democrat, power broker. Does she know about his kind of wild history? Let's remind her.
I'm tired of the mega bitch. You ain't nothing. You a punk. Now come on, do something. We're the best chicken fries in the universe. And we don't want to buy some Colonel Sanders chicken. Folks was in the cave when we had no empires. We learned to admire them, but they knew to admire us. We built pyramids for Donald Trump ever knew what architecture was. Yes. You want to be the only on television.
I wonder if the hate Trump media mob is going to ask Kamala Harris about her friend Reverend Al. Now, remember, much like Reverend Al rushed to judgment, remember the Tawana Brawley case? Kamala Harris did the same on the Jussie Smollett case and on Justice Kavanaugh. And after refusing to answer reporters' questions about Smollett's arrest, she later explained in a statement she was, quote, sad, frustrated, and disappointed. But all of this is very alarming. We have a Democratic Party that rushes to judgment, eliminates due process, presumption of innocence. They don't wait for any facts. We have a Democratic Party pushing higher taxes, 70+%, wealth confiscation if you save a few cents, open borders, ending ICE, and living personally a life of excess. Why don't they donate their money? We have a Democratic Party full of hypocrisy. It's all on display. We'll continue to give you a front row seat as our Hannity Watch on 2020 continues. But joining us now with reaction, former White House press secretary, Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer, along with Trump 2020 Media Advisory Board member, author of the bestseller Mad Politics, Gina Loudon. Gina, let's start with you. Why are they only generous with other people's money? Why don't they use their own money?
Well, this is typical of socialism. And Sean, for me, I'm just glad they're finally admitting they're socialists. Remember a few years ago, if you would have ever used the word socialism or socialist in relation to the Democrats, they would have called you crazy, a conspiracy theorist. But now they themselves are self-labeling themselves as socialists, as there's this mad rush to the left. And Sean, the sad reality is we have all symptoms of socialism. There's the bullying, the thuggery, the violence, and all the things we never thought we would see here in the United States of America, and yet they seem proud to be labeled socialist. But the thing about socialism, Sean, we can never forget is it requires tyranny, and that's exactly where we're going.
You know, Ari, really, abortion up until even the birthing process, late-term abortion, a lot of states, Democrats now pushing it, wealth tax, 70% tax rates, free health care, free housing, free retirement, guaranteed free, even free healthy food or government healthy food, guaranteed.
Stop it. You're depressing me. Look, I think there's a real tension inside the Democratic Party. The one thing they want more than anything else is to beat Donald Trump. And I think at the end of the day, they really want the candidate who can beat Trump. But because they all think they can beat Trump, they're trying to score the advantage by running to the far left, and that's their great risk. They nominate somebody who has no chance at defeating the president because they are too far left. This tension is going to play itself out throughout 2019 and throughout 2020. Every early sign is they just keep running left.
Do you see moderate Democrat? Crazy Uncle Joe is no moderate Democrat. He embraced all of Obama's failed agenda.
No, you know, the definition of a moderate Democrat now is somebody who just says, I'm not for Medicare for all. I won't abolish private health insurance. You know, this is the bold moderate of the new Democratic Party. No, it's a race to the left, Sean. You're exactly right about that. And it's one of the things that could create a center that Donald Trump can take advantage of.
All right, Gina Loudon, we'll give you the last word tonight.
Well, it is a race to the left. When you talk about free food and things, let's remember that Bernie Sanders is the one who has praised Food Lines, right, who has said that food rationing is an okay thing, praised the government of Venezuela, praised Castro. People have to realize this is really seriously what the Democrats are talking about, and this is a very clear decision for 2020.
When everyone has to remodel their home in 10 years, when we get rid of the all gas, natural gas, oil, when airplanes go away and we're going to take sailboats to Europe and high-speed trains to Australia, wow, good luck selling that plan. Good to see you both. Thank you. When we come back, a conservative attack on the campus of California, Berkeley. He's here to share his story with our own Lawrence Jones next.
I'll shoot you. And then that's up. I want this fight, dude. I'm with you. Yeah. I want this fight. I'm with you. Put your hands on your gun. Brace the floor, dude.
UC Berkeley released a statement addressing the incident, saying, in part, quote, UC Berkeley strongly condemns violence, harassment of any sort for any reason. That sort of behavior is reprehensible. It's intolerable. A message was sent by our police force to the campus community with a picture of the suspect and a request that anyone with information about the incident come forward and report what they know in support of our police department's ongoing investigation. We intend to identify and bring the perpetrators to justice. A photo of the suspect has been released, as you can see on your screen, as a search for him now is ongoing at this hour. Joining us now with reaction, the student at the center of this controversy, Hayden Williams, is with us, Fox News contributor, Campus Reform editor-in-chief. Our own Lawrence Jones is here. All right, obviously there's a lot going on here. Is that black eye, by the way, from this incident?
Yes, it is.
Okay, none of us, you're watching what's happening with Jesse Smollett, correct?
Yes.
A lot of people may doubt your story. What led up to it? And is there any evidence that you have eyewitnesses that will testify that you did nothing to provoke this?
Absolutely. So I'm a field representative, as you said, for the Leadership Institute, and it's my job to help organize and train conservative activists throughout California. And on Tuesday, I was invited to UC Berkeley's campus to help a conservative group, Turning Point, recruit new members. And while I was there, some students took offense to our sign that we had that said, "Hate crime hoaxes hurt real victims." And this person claimed we were promoting violence on campus and proceeded to take his aggression out on us.
How many witnesses do you have? Because I'm watching. I trained MMA, and that shot was a cheap shot, especially at the end. When did you start filming? At what point in the encounter?
As soon as the gentleman, and I use that term lightly, approached our table and began acting very erratic, I feared for my own safety, so I started to record at that moment.
All right. Now, did you try to diffuse this? Did you try to say, I'm entitled to my view? I guess one of the posters said, this is MAGA country. So I don't know what the trigger is for liberals and Make America Great Again. Walk us through the very beginning. This guy, what did he do? When did you start filming? And how many people were there with you?
That's right. So I had the president of the club with me there, and we were talking to a potential new member when this happened. And these two people just approached our table, as I said, very erratically, and started cussing at us. And that's when I knew that this was probably a troublesome situation. So I pulled out my phone to start recording, and his friend, one of the gentlemen that approached our table, smacked my phone out of my hand.
But there were other people videoing, thankfully, right?
That's right. That's right. And picked up my phone.
How long into the confrontation did video begin that you have seen?
6-7 seconds.
Wow. Lawrence, I've known you for a long time. You know about this group really well. Give us. I know you've been investigating this for us, and tell us what you found out.
So, Sean, we don't rush to judgment on this program or on this network. We try to get all the facts. We have contacted three students that were surrounding this event. They have backed up what Hayden had to say here. We contacted the university police, and we've even asked for if anyone has any other evidence that could give us a full picture to give that to us. This is what we do now.
But we do know that there were witnesses from the get-go, correct? Numerous ones?
Yes, we know that. We know there were 3 witnesses, but I think it's also important to note, Sean, that this is not new for UC Berkeley. All right, this is a school that's been burnt down almost because they don't like the conservative point of view on the college campus. And so it's not just an isolated event here. The conservative view is under attack, and you have professors that are on that campus that don't want the conservative view and students there. So it's something we've got to take seriously, Sean.
All right, Lawrence, thanks for investigating for that. Hayden? Assuming right now, because we're in this moment, obviously, with Justice Smollett, that you have those witnesses, that would make you a victim. That person will be found, and we will get to the truth, and we wish you well. And I've had a few black eyes in my day, but take care of that, and I'm sorry that happened. When we come back, we're going to read some of your viewer mail next, straight ahead.
It's time to get your free trial of Fox Nation. It's our new streaming service that's a perfect complement to the Fox News channel. Fox Nation features exclusive shows from me, plus all your favorite Fox News personalities. Now here's a preview of the shocking story of Susan Smith, Part 1. Check it out.
Your mama loves you so much.